In this tutorial, we're going to go through the process of creating a GitHub account and linking the code base that you have on your local machine to GitHub, pushing it up, checking out a branch, pushing changes to that branch, and also merging changes from like one branch to another. So let's get at it. The first thing you need to do is go to github.com and create an account if you don't already have one. Now, once you've created the account and you've logged in, you should see a dashboard similar to this. As of today, it's August 2020, so the dashboard might change depending on when you see this video. But you should be able to find the option to create the repository somewhere on the main screen. So I'll go ahead and create a repository, and the first thing that I'm going to do is give the repository a name. So I'm going to call this GitHub tutorial. You want your name to be descriptive of the code base that you're pushing up. Next thing is I'm going to make this public. You might want to make it private, but I'll just go ahead and leave it as public. I'm not going to initialize the repository with Readme, since we'll be doing that from local. So with that, go ahead and click create repository. From there, it's going to give you lines that you can run to initialize your repository. If you already have a pre-existing Git repository locally, you just run these commands to push it up. But we're going to be doing everything from the very beginning all the way to the end of where we push up the changes to the repository, since we don't have anything existing. So first thing we'll do is go to Visual Studio. VS Code. The first thing we need to do is open up the directory of where we're gonna store our code changes. So I'll navigate to this directory here, and like I had said, I like to keep my code in like one central location where it's kind of like organized. So in the C drive, I've created the dev folder, and from there I have like subfolders that I use for specific projects. So in my GitHub folder, I've created this GitHub tutorial directory, and I'll open this up with VS Code. Open it, and there we have that. Now in here, the first thing that we're going to do is create that Readme file. With VS Code, you can just create a file easily just by clicking this button here, create file. I'm just going to call it readme.md. .md stands for markdown, and that's its own specific language or syntax that you can use to create a document that, you know, it's nicely formatted for a quick read. So do hashtag, call this GitHub tutorial v1, and you can view. I should be able to view this file by right click, open preview, and that's kind of like how it renders out the markdown. So markdown is kind of like parsed and displayed by that. Whenever you push up your code changes to Git, it will be able to parse that file. But don't worry too much about markdown. Just create this file and give it a title. So from there, we need to go to our command line so that we can push these changes to GitHub. So if we go back to that folder, now you see that I have my readme.md file. So if you're using a Mac or Linux, you can use the terminal to navigate to the specific directory that you have your code changes to. If you're on Windows and you've installed Git Bash, you can pretty much right click on this folder inside the folder and just click Git Bash here. So that's one of the benefits of Git Bash. You can do that and it'll take you straight to Git Bash. And if I type ls, this is a common command that you should be able to use on both your Windows system and also Linux, Mac. You type ls, and you should be able to see that readme.md file. If you're used to your Windows commands instead of using the Linux commands, you can type dir, and that does the same thing, but we'll stick to the Linux commands. So ls, that shows us the file. From there, I'm actually gonna switch away from Git Bash. You can continue using Git Bash if you want to. I did have a tutorial for installing Commander, so I'm gonna go ahead and use Commander. So inside Commander, it's pretty much the same thing. It's just a matter of preference. Again, I can type ls. It just looks nice on Commander, and I can cd into GitHub and cd. That's change directory. So from there, I'm able to see my file. And then once I get there, now we need to go ahead and run this git commands. So the first command that we're gonna run is the initialization of the repository. So git init. So in here we're gonna run git init. That initializes our repository locally. It's pretty much what we're doing is we're tagging this directory locally. It's like, hey, this is a Git repository. It does create a .git directory that you can't see. It's a hidden file, and it tells you this is the branch that you're on. You're on the master branch. So by default, the first branch you create will be the first time you initialize Git. It's gonna create the master branch. So from there, the next thing we need to do is add the file to Git. So we'll do git add read, and what I did there is I hit tab. That auto completes. That way I don't have to type out the whole file. And you know, it's encouraged as a developer, be a little lazy, and by that I mean be efficient. Instead of typing it all out, you just tab it. So yeah, we've added that to Git. And now from there, the next thing we need to do is commit the change that we're about to push. So this we do. So we commit by typing git commit -m in quotes. We're gonna put inside those quotes. We're gonna put a message that's descriptive of the changes that we're pushing. Typically, you want your commit message to describe the changes that you're pushing. Since this is the first one, we're just gonna call it initial commit. And then once we've done that, the next thing we need to do is tell our local Git which upstream Git it's gonna be pushing up to. So we need to link this repository that we created here in GitHub with the local one that we have, and we will do that by running this command git remote add origin and then GitHub link. I'll just type it. Sometimes it's good to type things out just for muscle memory. The URL you don't really have to type, but here we go. So git remote add origin, that is. Now from here you can type git remote -v, and that shows you that the origin is set to that GitHub repository that we created. So from there, next thing we need to do is push up those changes to this Git repository that we have. So if I was to refresh this, you see it's still the same because we haven't pushed up those changes from our local machine to GitHub. And you will do that by running git push -u origin master. I'll go ahead and type it all out. Git push -u origin master. And it has pushed it up. Now I had already logged into this system to that GitHub, so depending on if this is your first time ever pushing to Git, it should ask you for your username and password, and basically as soon as you enter your username and password, it will go ahead and push up those changes to Git. So now if we go to Git and I refresh, I should be able to see my readme file. So let's go ahead and do that. And there it is, our readme file. So remember, readme file, the raw file, it's just #git tutorial. Don't worry about how I navigated all that. I just clicked on the file. But GitHub will parse your markdown file and print it out as it should be. So it just describes the repository. This is the GitHub tutorial repository. Here you should be able to see the branches that you have. So right now we're on master, and it's the only branch that we have. The reason for using multiple branches is, let's say there's me, Hiram, and there's another developer, John, and he's also working on the code base, right? And we both have like two different things that we're building. So typically how you would work is I would create my own branch that I would work for the changes that I'm making. He'd create his own branch for the changes that he's making, right? That way our code doesn't collide. And then whenever I finish making my changes in my own branch, I will push up. I can push up as much as I want, since I'm the only one that's utilizing that branch, right? Once I push up my changes to that branch, and they're ready, and I've tested them and I've verified that they're good to go, I can take changes from my branch to the master branch, where it has like the up-to-date code base that everyone has. So we're gonna walk through that process, just that way you're familiar with it. And these are the commands that you'll be utilizing the most, since you will only create the repository once, and then from there it's a matter of like creating branches, merging branches, and things like that. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to create a new branch. So I'm going to do git checkout -b, and then I'm going to give it a branch name. So I'll call this title update. Your branch should be descriptive of the changes that you're going to put in that branch, right? So I'll come here. So now, and note that whenever I come to VS Code, I don't need to refresh my code or change directory. Git's tracking all those changes. It knows like I'm on this branch, and it will refresh the changes. So for now, I'll change this to V2, Git tutorial V2, and then from there, so I've made that changes, right? So from there, I can do. Actually, let me undo that change real quick. Let's first start by pushing this branch. So if you try Git Push, it's gonna print out this other command that you need to run, because what it's saying is like, hey, this title update branch does not exist on GitHub. So you need to tell it specifically, like, hey, push, and also set the branch upstream to be title update. So I'll just type that out: git push set upstream origin title update. There you go. And now that will push that branch. So now if I come back here to GitHub, refresh, and then I click on the drop down, I should see the title update branch, right? So now that we've created that second branch, we can type git branch, and now I should be able to see the two branches. And it also has an asterisk to show which branch I'm on. Now if you're on git bash, you should be able to do the same things. So git branch, and it tells you which branch you're on. So now that we've created that new branch, we need to make our changes, the changes that we're making in our system, in our branch. Test them out, make sure they're working, push them out. So I'll just call it GitHub tutorial let's just call it V1, and then you'll see this are the changes, the title change branch, which I guess I should actually change the title V2. We can do something like description. You can put whatever you want. Just modify this file. That's all that matters. If you just want to change that V1 to V2. So once you do that, you can type git. If you go back to the command line, type git status, what this does, Git Status gives you the status of, hey, have there been any changes? Has any file been deleted? For example, if I was to delete the readme.md file, it would say deleted instead of modified. But now that I modified the file, it says here, this file has been modified. So that means I do have some changes that I can commit and push to Git. So the first thing you want to do is type git add readme.md. What this does is adds those changes to Git. So you're telling Git, hey, I actually want to commit these changes, so add them to the system. And then from there, I type Git Status. It says modified, but now it's not red. The reason it was red is because those changes had not been committed. And then from there, and it would be the same thing on Git Bash. So this would have been red. But now from there, you need to remember you need to add your changes first, and then the next thing is you need to commit, and it's git commit -m, and then in quotes you need to describe the changes that you're making with this commit. So for this would be readme, if I could spell that would be great, readme title changes, right? And then from there you can push those changes to Git push. Now note this time you don't need to tell it upstream to be title update, since you've already done that once. Just do Git push, and that should push your changes up to the branch. And now if we go to Git and we refresh, note that this still says Git tutorial v1. Now you can pause for a second and try and figure out why. So the reason that this says v1 and not v2 is because we're still on the master branch. Remember, we created a new branch, so we need to toggle to that branch. So we switch to title update, and now it's changed to GitHub tutorial v2. And then he also has those lines that we added. These are the changes from the title change branch, v1 to v2. But now if we go to master, this is still what we have. So now typically how it works is like I've created these changes, and what I want to do next is create what's called a pull request. And what that does is it merges my changes, the changes from my branch to the master branch. Well, a pull request does not merge the changes. You create the pull request for another developer to view the changes, and we'll go ahead and click create pull request. So we'll do from title update to master. Okay, so now if you click on that, so it tells you, hey, these are the changes that were done. So this was removed or modified to this, and this is also new, and that's the beauty of Git. But we'll go back because we can do this locally too. Instead of doing it here on Git, we'll do it locally, because typically you just do your merges locally and then create your pull request on here. But we'll do the merge locally. So just to kind of show you how it's done through the command line. So the first thing we'll do is check git checkout master. So we're going back to the master branch. Now what we need to do is we need to take the changes from title update and put them in master, and then push those changes. So we'll run git merge title update, and you can do git merge origin. So the thing about doing, anytime you put origin, what you're telling it is like, hey, you're gonna merge these changes, but merge them from the upstream repository. So you're merging the changes that you've already pushed up that are existing on GitHub. If you do just git merge title update, it's just gonna merge the local title update branch. So you run that, and it'll show you, hey, we've merged those changes, one file change, 4 insertions, 1 deletion. And then from there you can do git push, and that will push your changes to GitHub. and now you can come back and refresh. I'm on title updates. Now if I go to master, I should be able to see the same thing, and there it is. And what this does is it allows developers to work on a separate branch, test their code out, make sure it's working, and then once they verify that, they can merge it into master. Now typically in enterprise environment, in a corporate environment, there'll be restrictions with regards to who can merge from like one branch to another. In general, the concept is the same, and that is exactly how you will be utilizing Git 80% of the time. It's just adding files, committing them, and pushing them. Now you might run into what's called a Git conflict, and that's kind of like when, let's say, I'm making changes in my branch, someone else is making changes in their branch. They put their changes in, they merge their changes into master, right? And then I have my changes that I want to merge into master, but they've already merged theirs. So first, and maybe we're modifying the same lines of code. So first we need to resolve that those changes, and then commit them and push them. And that's pretty much the basics of Git. If you can master those core concepts of initializing the repository, pushing the repository upstream, creating new branches, adding files, committing and pushing, and also merging changes from one branch to another, you should be good 90% of the time. So Git has a whole bunch of other commands. A good one is like Git Diff. Let me kind of show you how that one is. So I'll modify this and say next upcoming changes. So now if I type Git Diff, that shows the difference, like what changed. So it says, hey, no new line. So upcoming changes. Okay, that's the end of file. Yep. Upcoming changes. So it says, oh, here it's like plus. You know, those are the changes that I've added. Sometimes it'll identify like white space changes as white spaces changes, but typically on like Git UI you can ignore white space. But as you can see clearly that it added that line that I have over there. If I type Git Status, I'm able to see that file, and then I do Git Add. So you can do, if you do Git Add and dot, that will add all these changes that are available on the directory. Typically you don't want to do this in case you only want to commit like one file and not all of them. But in this instance, since there's only one, I'm just going to do Git Add dot, and then we'll do Git Commit -m. And remember, the quotes should inside your quotes you should put a message that's descriptive of the change that you're making. I'm just call this update to read doc, then Git Push. Then once I come here, refresh, and yep, those changes are there.